With the recent support on my last Demon Slayer What If, I figured you'd want to see more Demon Slayer content. So today, I bring you What If Tanjiro Learned Moon Breathing. So if you enjoyed today's video, consider dropping a like and subscribing to the channel to never miss new upcoming bangers, and to help me get to my dream of 100k subs this year. That said, hope you enjoy Moon Breathing Tanjiro.
Hey Ross, sauce it up.
We start our story off with the perspective of Tanjiro, who had just finished selling all of the coal that he had brought himself down the mountain, and also had finished doing a couple of favors for the townspeople. Tanjiro would begin wondering to himself how in the world it became so late, as he begins making his way up the mountain. It would be here that Tanjiro would finally encounter the first change to the story. Number 1, the man who would have stopped him in the original from meeting his fate to Muzan would not have stopped him this time around, not noticing Tanjiro going up the mountain and leading Tanjiro to his ultimate demise. Tanjiro would make his way back up to the mountain, and once he does, he would end up fulfilling all of the promises that he would have made to his younger siblings, returning home, telling Nezuko that now he might just have enough money to buy her a brand new kimono. As from here, Nezuko goes over to Tanjiro, hugging him. They would have a perfect night, too perfect, and it would be here than the night of everything, as everything seemed so calm and peaceful. Suddenly, a scream could be heard. It was the highest ranking demon ever. Muzan Kibutsuji had just entered their home, and from here, he began his reign of terror, slaughtering the entire Tanjiro family line. And from here, Tanjiro, watching all of this going down, would become enraged, filled with so much anger. Tanjiro rushing towards Muzan with a hatchet in hand, trying to stop him from killing his family members. Tanjiro doing his absolute best to stop him, but Muzan's just too strong. Muzan completely overpowers Tanjiro, and it would be almost as if Tanjiro couldn't do a thing. Tanjiro was nothing but a mere ant to Muzan, and this would be shown in full display, as Tanjiro would attempt to save his family. Ultimately, his attempts being futile, with Muzan realizing that that mark on Tanjiro's forehead would be very similar to that of a demon slayer who had managed to almost kill him so long ago, Yoriichi. Seeing that mark almost made the blood of Muzan boil, and it would make him think that this human deserves one of the most agonizing deaths that you could even imagine. Going on to look at his direction, and then, with a quick move of his hands, slashing at the direction of the neck of Tanjiro, leaving a scar and pouring in so much blood that Muzan would almost be certain Tanjiro would die an agonizing death. From here, Muzan going on to finish the rest of the family, Nezuko included. And no, this isn't going to be a story of what if Tanjiro became a demon instead. It's going to be a completely different beast. From here, what would end up happening is that Tanjiro's body would begin violently shaking, coughing up blood, appearing dead, no scent coming off, as Tanjiro's heart and everything about him would stop, before finally, in a couple of hours, a lot of hours actually, Tanjiro would finally have a heartbeat, snapping back into existence, his body having finally accepted the blood of Muzan, with more than enough blood in Tanjiro for him to have almost died. But Tanjiro's body was more than capable of handling, being one of the direct descendants of Yoriichi, as he would be one of the only people who could have possibly survived that much blood, another one possibly being Nezuko. But what would end up happening is that Tanjiro would simply wake up weakly. Tanjiro being in the midst of daylight, as Tanjiro would stare directly at the direction of his family, with Tanjiro standing in the sun, just looking at them, with a cold expression on his face, as Tanjiro wonders to himself if he could have done anything differently, if he could have saved his family, if he could have been the reason that maybe just maybe, had he taken his family back towards the city, they might not have failed. They might not have lost their lives. The survivor's guilt would be going crazy within Tanjiro's mind right now. And from here, he would simply stare at this family, with blood coursing through his veins and an anger that will never be quenched going straight through him. Tanjiro this time didn't just arrive to see his dead family, fear, and see Nezuko survived. Everyone was lost. Nezuko doesn't survive. Tanjiro is truly alone, with nobody there to help him. And so, it would be here that nighttime would arrive, where an upper rank demon would arrive right next to Tanjiro. This being Kokushibu. Once Kokushibu would end up arriving, he would see Tanjiro standing still, as he would question him on what he's doing. Tanjiro going over to look at Kokushibu, with him then looking back the direction of his dead family. Kokushibu thinking to himself that he must have just been turned, then asking him what in the world he thinks he's gonna do just sitting there. Eat them already. Tanjiro then looking back at the direction of Kokushibu, as he would realize for the first time that Tanjiro's left side would have a mark that's eerily similar to his brother's. As from here, memories come flooding into the brain of Yoriichi, as he then looks towards the direction of Tanjiro, and a moment of anger would briefly flash through, as he would try to kill Tanjiro, blitzing at him using his first form of his moon breathing style, as Tanjiro would get sent flying meters and meters and meters away. Tanjiro then landing in the snow and slightly getting up, only to look back at Kokushibu, who would be right about to land on him. Tanjiro in a quick state of panic, jumping away, holding both hands up in front of his face, with Tanjiro being very, very powerful. Tanjiro was no slouch in any means or sense, and the fact that Muzan's blood would have been injected inside of him, this would have ended up making Tanjiro a fierce opponent. In the manga, if you guys are actually keeping up with those events, Tanjiro was turned into a demon, and Tanjiro's powers was that of Muzan's, if not greaters, with the abilities of sun breathing and water breathing, total concentration breathing, and being able to see into the other dimension, the clear or the worldless void or something like that. Tanjiro would have unparalleled power, and being one of the only demons to be able to survive in the sunlight, Tanjiro would be capable of just absolutely keeping up with Kokushibu, obviously being on the back foot the whole time, but being able to survive just enough for Kokushibu to land blow after blow after blow after blow, leading Tanjiro's body to get flung across, and leading Tanjiro to ultimately end up getting sent flying so far that Kokushibu would think to himself that he had finally done the job. Tanjiro then getting up, as one of his hearts would have been taken by Kokushibu, who would at this point end up making his way towards the direction of Tanjiro slowly, once arriving to realize that the sun would have started setting. Kokushibu standing under a shady area in which no light can travel, as he would watch as Tanjiro's body would then get hit by the sunlight, with him having a smile on his face, thinking, "That's your end, kiddo, no more for you." But Tanjiro sits there. Nothing happens. Tanjiro looks up at the sky, looks up at the sun, and when Kokushibu realizes this, a feeling of complete terror would overtake him, as he would see that that boy has the ability to stay out in the sunlight. Not only will the darkness be his domain, but the light as well. Not just the darkness, but he will have both sides, both yin and yang. And so, making his way towards the direction of Tanjiro, once nighttime would finally roll around, Kokushibu would ask Tanjiro what in the world he was thinking of doing when he stood there in front of those humans and tried to eat them, thinking to himself very quickly that if he uses his wording right, he can potentially have Tanjiro train under him and ultimately be the one responsible for overtaking Muzan and potentially learning the secret to the power that this boy has to be out in the sunlight. And from here, Tanjiro would begin to be sweet-talked by Kokushibu. He would begin to spin a narrative that Tanjiro was there to eat those humans, and he was simply there to save them. That he is the demon who eats other demons, who fights off against them, who protects humans. Noticing that when he would have looked at Tanjiro, Tanjiro would have had tears in his face. Tanjiro then looking up towards Kokushibu and asking him who in the world he thinks he is to be lecturing him, that he's nobody, he's just some crappy old demon. He just kills other humans just like the one responsible for killing his family. And just like him, he's gonna pay. Tanjiro rushing back at the direction of Kokushibu, as Kokushibu would ultimately end up landing a blow so devastating that Tanjiro would be completely knocked out. For a brief second, as Kokushibu would stand above him once more and tell him that he is telling him the truth, that if he were to train under him, potentially, Tanjiro may just have the strength required to defeat the ultimate demon, Muzan. Maybe, just maybe, Tanjiro might be the key. And so, Tanjiro's 2-year time skip would begin, with Tanjiro learning moon breathing, as well as blood demon art, and also learning the ability to master, and I do mean master, his scar, which would flare up and would end up having a demon slayer mark right on the nape of his neck. Tanjiro, instead of being like your stereotypical demon, would have a very, very strange ability to be able to eat demons and consume them and gain double, if not triple the amount of benefit that a demon would gain from simply eating another human. Cannibalism? Maybe. But Tanjiro's goal isn't to deliver demons. Tanjiro's goal isn't to show that they can be just like humans too. Tanjiro's goal is to eradicate every demon that lives, to eradicate and get rid of completely the entirety of the demon race, making sure that nobody ever has to go through the torture that he went through, and making sure that once all the demons of this world are being rid of, Tanjiro will make sure that he's the last one to go. He will be the only one remaining, and when that happens, Tanjiro will commit seppuku, making sure to end the long line of history of demons. After having been explained to Kokushibu what exactly demons are, where they came from, and who Muzan Kibutsuji is, Tanjiro's 2-year training time skip would finally come to an end, as Tanjiro would have ended up learning a couple of skills. Number 1, being able to easily increase his strength, speed, mobility, and swordsmanship skills alongside the help of Kokushibu. In those 2 years, eagerly, Tanjiro would have mastered the ability of moon breathing and the blood demon art, which he would use to create his own derivative style of moon breathing, maybe even more powerful than Kokushibu himself, as Tanjiro's demon slayer mark would flare up, and Tanjiro would gain the innate ability to watch and see into the transparent world. This would spark Tanjiro to ask Kokushibu to take him to Muzan, once Tanjiro would feel as though he would be ready. But Kokushibu would tell him, let's start smaller. For now, let's not be too hasty here. You still haven't defeated even the 9th ranking demon, or the 8th, or the 7th. First, you have to defeat demons such as those before you ever could dream of getting anywhere near Muzan. Muzan is more powerful than even myself. What could I say? Potentially 2 times more powerful. Tanjiro letting out a, I've already become more powerful than you, Kokushibu. Take me to Muzan now. As Kokushibu would tell Tanjiro that even if he wanted to, he couldn't. He has no idea on where Muzan's whereabouts are. But for now, Tanjiro could start slow. His goal is to take care of all demons, right? So, let's start off with the smaller ranking demons. Eventually, Tanjiro ends up agreeing, making his way towards the direction of 2 lowly demons, which would have been wandering around doing who knows what. Tanjiro encountering one demon who has the innate ability of blood demon art to control 2 balls or multiple that they can use to pretty much end up using as projectiles. Another one who has the ability of shooting arrows which can manipulate the direction in which somebody will travel in, and a bit of a homing missile ability. with Tanjiro being completely stunned at the weakness of these demons. Tanjiro thinking to himself that these are truly some of the upper ranking demons. Pitiful, Tanjiro would think, as easily, using the abilities of moon breathing, first form, Tanjiro would easily dismantle these demons, making sure that nothing of them would be left, and Tanjiro would sit there, as by the end of it, he would feast, Tanjiro's power growing ever so slightly, as Tanjiro would realize that this training, all of this work that he had been putting in, it was finally paying off, and Tanjiro was becoming something a bit more powerful, a bit more along the lines of demonic. Tanjiro at this point started letting more and more things get to him, and eventually Tanjiro would make his way towards a strange forest, a forest of spiders, where Tanjiro would end up encountering a family, with Kokushibu alongside him, who would end up eradicating many of the demons there. Tanjiro starting off with a woman, a feminine creature, a demon, which Tanjiro would make suffer heavily, using second form, Pearl Flower Moon Gazing, an attack in which Tanjiro would perform several crescent-shaped slashes that would defend him from incoming attacks, sending a barrage of crescent blades, which would cut off the head of that demon, immediately causing the demons to be alerted by this, as the main big bad would end up arriving, and Tanjiro, using the abilities of moon breathing, would easily be able to take out. However, not before that demon would notice Kokushibu and wonder what a high-ranking demon is doing there. With this new demon, it appears, Tanjiro looking towards the direction of the spider creature, as he would then think to himself that he looks disgusting. He never wants to see something like that again. And so, Tanjiro, before the demon could even ask another question, would use 8th form, Moon Dragon Ringtail, as Tanjiro uses a gigantic version of a sword, creating a singular gigantic crescent-shaped slash that slowly would decrease in size, creating dozens of crescent moon blades, with this slash being capable of completely cutting down the demon and being able to use his abilities to the max, being able to cut this demon down and making it seem as though the slash could have the power to cut down entire mountains. It's a truly terrifying ability to watch happen, and Tanjiro was just getting started.